Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Master and Drum Whiskey Room for a special, little bit of an early Wednesday night here on the Master and Drum, as we're going to have a wonderful guest here tonight. We're going to be talking to Caleb Kilburn, Master Distiller over at Peerless Distilling Company. I got a chance to sit with him not too long ago, actually a couple of years ago. When you think about it, it was kind of a while ago. Got to taste some amazing whiskeys while we were there. I was actually there along with Scott for my bourbon journey. We got to do a great interview with him and kind of learn everything he had going on over at Peerless. So tonight, if you guys have never seen him or talked to him or gotten a chance to hear him, I think it'll be really insightful for everyone. He's absolutely, brilliant distiller. The stuff that he's doing at Peerless, both with process, both with distillation, grain to glass, everything he's doing is, it's really cutting edge. And I think that's what's making, Peerless's whiskey stand out, especially for such younger distillate. So real quick, before we bring him on, I do want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Sergey's here, Sugar Kitty, Jim Muller, Cameron Lochner was here nice and early. Hey, Michelle Martin is here. Cheech Adelino, what's up, bud? Joseph Brazzers is here. How you doing, guys? Larry Fairbanks, Tim Cornet, how you doing, bud? Hey, Joseph Brazzers, ADHD Whiskey's here. How you doing, man? Nice to see you. Chris Buzalencia, what's up, bud? Harley, David Hatton is here. As you can see here, I'm starting with some Peerless small batch bourbon, which we're going to start with today with Caleb. So real quick, before we jump in with Caleb, I do want to mention tonight I will be going live at 9 o'clock again. My regular scheduled time, but in order to sit with Caleb here, we want to do something a little bit earlier, so we could fit with his schedule, and so you guys still have the opportunity to learn, a lot from Caleb tonight. So, real quick, March 4th, 2015, Caleb distilled Peerless's first barrel of whiskey in 98 years. Remember, Peerless was a pre-prohibition brand that came back, and in the fall of 2017. That continued. His success continued. Peerless's Kentucky Straight Rye earned industry-wide respect when it was named the number 15 whiskey in the world by Whiskey Advocate, which was a pretty big deal for such a young whiskey at the time. He's one of the youngest distillers in the history of the industry, and he's produced some handcrafted whiskey that rivals some of the older whiskeys that are coming out, and some of the some other whiskeys that are considered the best whiskeys in the world. So. Without further ado, I give you Caleb Kilburn. How you doing, man?
There we go.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Yeah, I think you had me muted, and I think I had me muted too. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, awesome, man! I'm so glad to talk to you again. It's been quite a minute since we got to sit down and talk to you. I think I remember running into you over at Westport Whiskey and Wine in Kentucky one time.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I saw you there. You were kind of getting ready to release some picks there. I think sign some bottles. But what's been going on, man? I know. So you got married since I last saw you, right?
It's been a minute. We and I actually just got to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. It's been a blessed year.
That's amazing. So when exactly you got married? About a year ago?
It was June 27th last year.
Okay.
So the way it actually worked out was best case scenario. It was when everything with the we had to drastically cut back our guest list, because initially we had grand plans of inviting both sides, massive families, community and family and friends and everyone out, and we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it responsibly. So we cut back, we shrunk our audience, we shrunk what we were hoping to do, cut it back to just friends and intimate family. And at the end of the day, I think we probably walked away with a lower stress wedding because of it. But it was a great time. And luckily no COVID cases come out of it.
That's awesome. So a little bit before we dive into the whiskey here, you were born what, 1991, right?
91, yes.
So you're young.
I'm a baby in the distilling world.
You're a baby in the distillery world. You were raised in Salt Lake, Kentucky.
Yep. So most people aren't familiar with Salt Lake because it's such a small town. If you were to if you know where Lexington is, it's about an hour east of there.
Okay, so you grew up on a dairy farm, right?
Yes. So
well,
I
yeah.
was
So
the only child to dairy farming parents. So it was not a big operation. People hear dairy and they think Wisconsin and 600 head of cattle and veterinarians on staff and around the clock team, and that wasn't the case. We were milking closer to 50 head of cattle, 50, 60, and we had a one person at a time, part-time work hand, but other than that, it was mom, dad, myself, and my grandfather also lived and worked on the farm.
Well, how do you think working on, from a dairy standpoint, how do you think that helped you, into being a master distiller or head distiller, whatever you still like being called head distiller or master distiller at this point?
I have finally been held down and forced to take the title.
The title.
By that I mean it was actually bestowed upon me. We'll jump back to the master distiller conversation because that's another great story. As far as the foundation that the dairy established for me, I mean, it was just an amazing way to grow up. It was family rich. I wasn't chopped in some daycare somewhere. It was raised under people who cared about me. But taking this step further, when it was time to fix a pump or fix a piece of machinery or build a new stall or something, we were not wealthy. We had to go out, we had to build our own things, fix our own equipment. And as a result, when I was little, I held a flashlight. When I was a little older, I turned nuts and bolts and disassembled and reassembled. And largely the mechanical side of things became kind of my forte. It was what I initially thought I wanted to do as far as like mechanical engineering. But I just fell in love with distillation because rather than machinery, yeast is my machinery. Rather than different friction points or things of that nature, it's this process that's able to be engineered. So the dairy upbringing gave me an excellent mechanical foundation. It also gave me mom likes to take credit for her work ethic. I'll put it that way. Because, I mean, growing up, we didn't take vacations or no days off. It was if you're healthy and happy, go work. If you're sick and not happy, go work.
Yeah, the cows aren't going anywhere. So as long as they're making milk, there's no days off, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, a Holstein cow does not celebrate Labor Day and just give you a day off. They still want to eat too.
Yeah, they still want to eat. And they still want to give back to you for your dairy farm, right?
Oh yeah.
So after you're working at the dairy farm, you were into mechanical engineering. Where did your education take you before you got into distillation?
Well, I was a big nerd. So when I went to college, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go into engineering, biology towards some realm of research, or chemistry because who knows, I might have blew something up. But I loved all three disciplines so much. And I was one of the weirdos that whenever you get into one, I would understand it through the context of the other ones. So when I would look at biology, for instance, well, heck, the physics of it, as far as like how this happens, it relates back to that. And if you want to say, okay, well, physics is just looking at the chemistry of it, how it's all put together. Yeah. You can just understand them. And when I became interested in distillation, I formally had not decided which direction I wanted to go as far as career. And so I was just, while I was still in school, I was taking classes from all different disciplines because I loved all the science. I mean, some of my electives when I finally graduated were DC circuitry and statistics. I mean, it was just things that I was fascinated with. So when I got interested in distilling, it draws on all these different disciplines in such a way that I was able to kind of take these strengths from all around the area of STEM professions, science, technology, engineering, and math. Yeah. And I was able to apply it in a way that made sense to me.
So yeah, I mean, I remember when I first talked to you, you ran through the gamut of all the different stuff you wanted to do, especially from the science side of it that got you so involved in it. And then what, by 2014, that's when your career with Peerless pretty much started, correct?
Yes. So my academic career didn't end until that December. So there's a little bit of an overlap there. Prior to that, I had attended a course here in town that introduced me to the industry, to distilling. I worked my way in good with some of the people who actually taught the distilling courses at the Distilled Spirits Epicenter. If any distillers are out there who want to learn, highly recommend them. The pet name for it's Moonshine University, but
yes,
it's put on through the Distilled Spirits Epicenter. Can't say enough good things about those people. But I was able to work my way in good with some of the people who were actually teaching the course. The three pillars, the three people who really took me under their wing, really showed me their craft, and kind of shaped my my path to understanding the distilling process. That would be Rob Sherman, who's the president of Vendome Copper and Brass Works; Pete Kamer, who's a retired distillery engineer, formerly with Barton, now building new facilities; and Randy Allender, who is with Beam for a very long time, and he is also a distillery consultant. And each one of them, it's not a 1, 2, 3 or ABC. It's all of them across the board were immensely impactful as far as how they were able to show me their takes and their philosophies. And they're all different.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about this industry. If you go around and you talk to 12 different distillers, there are going to be a little bit of overlap in that Venn diagram as far as philosophies and things people care about. But every single distiller has a different way of controlling their stills, a different way of setting up their fermentation for success, the way they grade barrels and assemble batches. Everything's different, and that's what makes it so special, because I think you'll agree there's a few different good Kentucky bourbons out there. I mean, there's a ton.
Yeah, there's a few out there.
No, the whole gambit. It's amazing to see how so many different philosophies result in so many different flavors, and it's all good.
Yeah, I mean
it's better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah, and everyone's palate is different, and I always get a kick out of Scotch guys or Irish whiskey guys saying that all bourbon tastes the same, which is not true by any means. But then you can go the other way, and bourbon guys can say, hey, all smoky Scotch tastes the same. What are you talking about? But when you haven't tried the full gamut of representations of whiskey across one given area, I mean, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. But I did want to mention, so you're working since there from 2014. Did you know of Peerless Distilling Company and the history behind it, and when you met Carson and Corki, Taylor, to bring it back, what was that like?
Well, the early days was strictly, I was working with these consultants. I was learning. I wanted to basically just be a sponge for the industry.
Yeah.
And that led me to asking these people who were teaching me, hey, where can I go? What can I do? I want to learn everything I can about distilling. And they said not for me to use this last summer before I graduated to go to an established distillery, but rather one that was under construction. So I came to a hollowed out tobacco warehouse in the mud and the gravel, and I met with a fellow who he had a construction background. His name was Carson Taylor, 5th generation owner of Peerless.
That's right.
We met and hit it off, and it was just as plain as could be. And my whole goal when I agreed to come on was just to see it come together. So I agreed to come in and saw lumber and shovel gravel and do general labor tasks for $12.50 an hour in the heat of Louisville summer in a poorly conditioned space there were no it was not conditioned.
Oh yeah.
If we wanted any air to move in the building, it was unhanging about 8 sheets of plywood and trying to hope that there was a breeze blowing through. There rarely was, but at least the light made us feel better.
Yeah, for sure. And
so yeah, I came on board, and what started off as this general grunt laborer, thanks to my upbringing, thanks to my fascination with the process, and just, again, being this sponge, wanting to learn everything I could, I was able to take over, the process equipment needs to be installed this way. nobody else on the job site was pipe literate, let alone knew how the mechanics needed to be put in place. So even though I was the youngest guy on the job site by a wide margin, by like a factor of two, I was the only one who was able to talk shop with the mechanical contractors and had a strong understanding of what needed to happen. So sawing lumber turned into laying out pipelines turned into laying out fermenters and stills and holding tanks. And before it was over, I somehow convinced this group of engineers that me at Fresh 23 was the one to write the manual and manuscript for how the entire computer control system was to run.
Wow,
But
that's crazy.
It was an amazing experience, and to be honest, I'm blessed that I didn't know what I didn't know.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, for what you guys built at Peerless, if none of you guys watching have been to Peerless Distilling Company, it's one of the most beautiful distilleries that you'll ever see. It's not only, also one of the cleanest I've ever seen, and I think you guys work hard at that as well. But everything is modern, yet has that old school, feel to it, which is what I love about it.
And that goes through all the way to the products. It's the family heritage, the history of Carson and Corki's lineage. That is the foundation for everything that we do here. When it comes to process, there wasn't an antique mash bill or an old recipe that I had to follow or a certain proof. It was just they had a family reputation. They had this a promise of a peerless caliber product. And as a result, they looked at me and said, make it. Not make it follow this recipe or make it follow that. It's just strictly, what do you feel is going to make the best product?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, they trusted you to let's recreate the brand. And, I mean, let's talk about it. This is the Kentucky Peerless Rye. This was the first thing you distilled.
Yeah.
And it actually blew people's minds when it came out. Like first you released the 2-year-old version, and then the 3-year-old started coming out. Now as the older stuff is coming out, you're really starting to taste, the flavors and everything that you guys put into it. So just real quick, guys, this is sweet mash, non-chill filtered, barrel proof, everything you kind of love in a especially a good rye whiskey. What was why rye in the beginning? Why rye? Was that the throwback that you wanted to call back to?
Well, real quick, something that's really special that we did that didn't make the bullet points there was the fact that everything was done in-house. We decided 100% of Peerless production, every drop of Peerless you ever get, ran through this distillation equipment over here and went into the barrel, was matured, processed on site. Everything happens inside these 4 walls. So as you mentioned, we started distilling back in 2015. You would be amazed how many people were just viscerally angry that we didn't have 10-year-old bourbon 2 years later. You can laugh, but it's the truth.
No, I mean, listen,
people belligerent in retail asking us how we could call ourselves distillers if we didn't have 10-year-old bourbon, and we're like, time.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the Peerless name, all of a sudden people just want you to like source like everyone else was doing. But I give you guys a lot of credit for not sourcing even at that time, because that seemed where the industry started trending that direction. But you guys, like you said, it's grain to glass. Everything is done in house, all distilled right there on site, aged right there on site as well.
Yep.
The barrel warehouse right there is really cool. The smells in there are amazing. So tell us a little bit about the rye and your mindset with developing this first.
Okay, so the rye whiskey itself, the base of it, of course, is a sweet mash. Yep. Difference in sweet and sour mash is what you're using as your starter, what you're using as your base. We start with fresh ingredients every single time: fresh corn, fresh rye, fresh barley, fresh water, and a first generation yeast. Those are the hallmarks of what a sweet mash is. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it produces this very sweet, very floral beer. In contrast to this, if you end up replacing a portion of that water or a portion of that yeast, either with backset or stillage, you end up with a sour, gritty note. It's going to be similar like that of a sourdough bread. And while it's great in French toast, when it comes to whiskey, it can become very, very overpowering very quickly.
Yep.
So what a typical distillery will do is take a sour mash and distill it at a higher proof being more neutral to help clean that up. The downside of this is as you're stripping out some of that grain, gritty character note from the sour mash, you also have some collateral damage in that the yeast character, some of the fruits, some of the florals, and the grain is also going to be stripped out as well. Not in its entirety, but just some portion. By starting with sweet, very floral beer that doesn't have that note, we can really push the envelope, getting more grain, more body, more heft into the whiskey as we distill it. Rather than distilling at 145 proof, the way you would with a sour mash, we're pushing down below 130 much of the distillation. Yeah. And so what that does is not only harvesting more flavor on the front end, it's less water you have to add.
Yeah, you're going into the barrel pretty low, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the next thing we do that's really different is we go in the barrel very, very low proof of 107. We allow it to mature. And at the end of maturation, we don't add a drop of water. We don't chill filter it. We don't do anything to adulterate it or to change it. Basically, we just strip out the char so it doesn't crunch.
Yeah, I mean, this bottle, this particular bottle I have right here is 109.1 proof, and that's a nice proof point for a barrel proof. You do get a lot of my signature flavor that I always there's two attributes to Peerless. Whenever I have a Peerless that I notice, one, and you mentioned it, is the heft of it. Yep. It's extremely creamy and viscous. No matter it doesn't matter whatever I've tried from Peerless. It has a very creamy mouthfeel to me. And the second one is normally, you mentioned some of the fruits, the floral quality to it, but I get a lot of floral honey, and it kind of comes across in each bottle I have. I mean, I think the bourbon more than the rye, but I think the bourbon can sometimes push those fruit forward notes a little bit more, especially in the small batch. But I think the heft of what you guys craft is probably the real standout for me, and one of the reasons why I love Peerless overall.
Well, thank you. So you were asking about bourbon versus rye. The only difference on the front end is just the grains. We're going to use the same yeast. We're going to use the same process, same production tactics. And then when we're distilling it, we're going to be obviously looking for more grasses, more of a herbaceous character in the rye. And on the bourbon, it's going to be a little bit more grainy. You get a little bit more of a buttery characteristic to it. But when we entrusted the barrel, they're going in the same proof. They're going in the same quality of oak, the same char level. Number 3 char with a medium toast beneath it to really harvest as much caramel as possible. Yep. We're going to store them in similar rick houses. It's just how they come out at the end of the day. And it sounds really novel, but it's not common within the industry. We taste every barrel. It's not something where we taste a barrel and say, okay, this is one representation of 30 that were filled that day. They all taste like that, because it would be an oversimplification to just say, yeah, they're all going to be close to this.
Yeah.
Instead, what we do is we taste every barrel. Myself, John Wadle, who's our single barrel curator that you'll be on with tomorrow night. Yep. Nick Clee, who's our morning distiller. That's the trio. We sit down, we go through everyone, we see, is this barrel ready? And if any one person says, I don't think it's ready, we put it back on the rick. We let that barrel continue maturing. We let it keep aging. If we're unanimous, okay, this is ready to be Peerless, we have to establish where it fits within our portfolio. If it is mostly good, but maybe it's a little weak in one area, maybe it has a great floral nose and a caramel palate, but the finish is just too brief, it becomes a mingle barrel. It's something where we can take the strengths and add them to a batch and compensate for its weaknesses by adding other barrels that are strong in that area. So if I have one that maybe has a brief finish, I can add one that has a strong finish, one that has a weak nose, find one that has a strong nose. And by working our way around, what we're able to do is construct a whiskey it's better than any individual barrel goes into it. So that's our small batch program, and that's what we'll be tasting. Yep. In contrast, though, we do come across ones that they're the total package. They have the nose, they have the body, they have the finish, they have the mouthfeel. And most important of all, they have this unique character to them, because it'd be so boring if a small batch and a single barrel were even in the same realm as far as palate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, those are single barrels.
Yeah, I mean that's why we love single barrels, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier. Some of the Peerless single barrels that I've had have been some of the best whiskeys that I've come across in a long time. Just not just the ryes. I mean, I have a legendary rye here, which you said it was the GOAT.
Yes, that's the one that we can't get over. The one we keep talking about. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, this is called the Rye Tie. Now, I was lucky enough to get this way back in the day when we did the original interview with Caleb. This was the one that we tasted in the tasting room, and we were completely blown away by it, and for good reason. I think it's got like this rum finish characteristic, but it's not finished in rum. It's like this sugary brown sugar
molasses,
molasses. And I'm like, we were like, I'm like, is this a finished Peerless? And you were like, no. You're like, no, that's just the way it came out. We don't understand. And I think there was another pick. I want to say it was the Orange Blossom something, I think it was called. And you said they were sister barrels. They were right next to each other.
Yep.
And the differences, and which is, to prove your point why you taste every barrel. Those two sister barrels that were literally right next to each other were so completely and utterly different. I could see why you taste it. Is that, tasting every barrel, is that something that you had to learn as you go along because you guys were just noticing all these crazy differences as you were distilling?
Well, it was a learning process.
Yeah.
When we first, we always had the ambition of tasting every barrel.
Yeah.
That was something that I was adamant about because I didn't feel that we would get an accurate feel for the population otherwise. Because again, when you go barrel to barrel and you see crazy differences and they're supposed to be litter mates, it's time to just put things aside and just taste the whiskey.
Let's just taste them all. So let's dive into the rye here. And while we're doing that, I do want to ask you, which is a cool question, and I think I remembered you answering this, but I want to let you answer it.
Okay.
Because it's such a quintessential part of Peerless. JG, what was the idea behind the bottle shape?
Okay, so this is actually a really cool one. First off, our bottle was designed in-house by fifth generation Carson Taylor. In addition to being a very gifted designer as far as how he was able to lead construction on the building and carry out his vision for the tour path, as he was looking around for inspiration on the bottle, he noticed the shape of our doubler was beautiful.
Yep.
So I don't have a picture of the vessel itself. I can't materialize it in front of me. But what it is a narrow cylinder with rivets up the side and around the base. And then it comes to a neck, and then it goes to what's called an onion, which is where the copper flares back out into a bulb in the shape of an onion before going up to a condenser. And so what happens is he actually took that representation, elongated it slightly, added the H. Craver, which is the original owner and proprietor of Kentucky Peerless. His signature is now on the top of the bottle. And rather than the copper onion, we now have either a silver for rye or a gold for bourbon. The cork is actually modeled after the onion.
No, that's crazy.
Yep.
Never really noticed that. Here you go, guys. Is this the silver and the gold tops?
Yep.
Pretty cool. So take me through the rye experience here. You guys, when you were crafting this, what were you going for?
Well, the beauty of it is we had all these foundational pieces, these philosophies put in place that we believed would make good whiskey. Because when you start, you don't know. The joke Corki used to always tell is that I had 2 years of job security when we started, and then we got to the point where we tasted the rye, we released the batches. As you so kindly mentioned, we were actually named number 15 whiskey in the world, 2017 Whiskey Advocates Whiskey of the Year awards, and we're the youngest anything to make the list. Youngest distillery, youngest product, youngest distiller, and I think we were the only true rye to make the list. So it was a very impactful award for us, and upon that, Corki gave me 2 more years of job security until the bourbon came out. And I never answered the question. You asked why rye? Why did that come out first? It's simple. The whiskey was ready where the bourbon wasn't mature yet.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we've always had the philosophy if we're going to let the barrels tell us when it's ready.
No, absolutely.
As far as assembling it, the hallmarks of rye, of course, are going to be it has a little pepper note. It's going to be grassy. It's going to be floral or herbaceous. But most rye whiskeys really play up the rye spice and oak, and they really don't branch out from that.
Yeah. I just think it has such a nice balance, and probably like a lot of people, I was very amazed at the flavor profile that you were getting from Peerless in in younger, when it was 2 years old. I think even at a full 3 years old, I mean, it just keeps, getting a little bit more layered and layered and layered. What age are we looking at for the standard small batch ryes now? Are we looking at the youngest still being 3 or 4, or where are we at this point?
I would say the median age of what's making it into our small batch rye is around 5 years old right now.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
We do have a few barrels that are lower than that are really mature for their age. We have some that are way older than that are just kind of just now hitting their stride. They were late bloomers. But again, that's the beauty of it. That's ultimately why when you look at the bottle, there isn't an age statement on there. It actually gives us the flexibility to look at what barrels are going to come together the best, because you can take some young ones that maybe are a little bit more bold with their sweet, their floral, their fruit. Maybe some older ones that have that really nice gruff, that earthy character just down pat. And what you do is when you add the strengths of both of those, you end up with some really nice crossovers.
So is your mash bill kind of a secret, or do you let people know what your mash bill is?
The mash bill is the only part of the puzzle I'm not allowed to talk about.
Fair enough. Here's a cool question or a cool comment. Mark Wanner said, tasted 5 single barrels at the distillery. Best tasting I had out of 7 on the trip. No doubt at all. They were all so good.
Well, good deal. Thank you very much, sir.
Also, where did that comment go? Cameron wanted me to ask Caleb about the JHOB, the birthday barrel single barrel.
The JH, Justin's House of Bourbon. Got it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, the birthday barrel.
I'm not quick with acronyms all the time. Great barrel. And a great group. They're so nice, and we love. A lot of people end up talking about our single barrel program here at the distillery, but where we shine and where we actually prefer to direct people how we want them to support us is by supporting people actually purchase single barrels and actually sell our small batch out in the real world. We are quick to direct people, like you were talking here in town. You saw me over at Westport. We love Chris over at Westport. We want to support him there. We want to support people at Liquor Barn. We want to support anybody who's willing to invest in us. We want to invest that same trust back in them.
So speaking of single barrels, right here tomorrow night, here, I'll put up the graphic real quick. Thursday, July 15th, that's tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, live here on the Mash and Drum. We're going to be doing our Mash and Journey Whiskey Club. We're going to be picking 2 Peerless single barrels for the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, a rye and a bourbon. I could not be more excited to have my own Peerless barrel here, a couple of them along with Scott. So we're really excited. So definitely tune in tonight. Tomorrow night, guys, to join in on the fun and watch us argue over which barrel we like more.
I'm really excited that you all have teamed up, and it's going to work out great. Yeah,
we're really excited too. The ability and the chance to finally get our hands on some, because I have tasted a lot of groups, Peerless single barrels, but to have our own, I'm like, oh my God, man, we cannot wait. We're trying not to dive into the samples early on. I've just been kind of looking at them. I kept them wrapped up so I didn't go in there.
It's something you almost have to hide it from yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Will Henderson in the chat, he's going to be on tomorrow with us. He's going to be helping pick. He's going to be in the group tomorrow, and also Joseph Brazo is also going to be helping us pick tomorrow too. So we're going to have a great group picking some of the single barrels tomorrow, guys. All right, so you said you released the rye, won all sorts of awards, very impressive. Now it's bourbon time. It was time for the bourbon to release. It needed some more time to age. Tell me about the bourbon process and exactly how, did you guys feel any pressure leading up to the bourbon since, Kentucky is built on, bourbon? What was that like? Because when I spoke to you, the bourbon was still aging. We didn't get really a chance to taste it yet.
So I actually felt a lot less pressure on the bourbon than I did on the rye. Reason being, on the rye, it was all very fresh. It was, is it good? Is it not good? Am I valid as a distiller? Is my palate going to agree with the public? I mean, there's a lot of question marks there.
For sure.
By the time that the bourbon came along, I felt very comfortable with the reception from people within the industry. I was a little firmer and like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Well, I mean, nobody really knows until you know. And I was very blessed with, again, amazing people who took interest in me, who supported. I mean, heck, I get to talk to people who do podcasts every now and then. And y'all are very kind.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to be unkind about. I mean, you guys are doing everything that, the modern day, bourbon drinker and whiskey drinker loves, so there's really nothing to, to go crazy over, honestly.
But nonetheless, when it was leading up to the bourbon, at that point, the whiskey was tasting amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I was more confident in the way the bourbon was going to be received than I was in the first rye.
Yeah.
Just because I knew I thought the rye was good, but I hadn't actually saw it go through to the public. Okay. After I saw the rye go, I knew what we had in the bourbon, and then there was nothing to be nervous about. It wasn't whether or not the whiskey was ready, because I knew it was ready. It wasn't how we mingled it, because we already had a very good process in place. I trusted the process, and the whiskey turned out, like I said, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the bourbon, I remember, so the first time I got the chance to have this, it was interesting. I had a couple of our YouTubers here at my place, and we did a blind tasting, and somebody had threw the Peerless bourbon in the mix with a couple of other pretty, some stiff competition, and the Peerless, I think, came out second and beat out some really, stalwart bourbons that, people talk about all the time. And I remember picking up the bottle. I'm like, Jesus, this is the first bourbon. My goodness gracious, we could not believe the results when we first tasted it. Mm-hmm. As far as when you were aging it, and did you? Obviously, I know you always go for balance. You want a good finish. You want good mouthfeel. You want a little bit of everything that you love in a good whiskey. Where are you at a point now with making the small batch? Do you know exactly in the warehouse where you have to go, or is it still a matter of just tasting each single barrel, like you said earlier?
Well, when you go through and you taste every barrel, we've got better at grading. We've got more efficient. We're quicker. We can a lot more efficiently say, okay, this one needs to be a single. This one is single quality, but we're going to put it in the mingle because we know the notes in that single are what we miss in the mingle. We've got it to a point now where, and again, it's just experience where we know a little bit better what we need to do to make the batch a little better.
My favorite note in the small batch is this like rich caramel apple note that I get every time I taste it.
So you were talking bourbon versus rye. You want to go through a little rapid this or that?
Yeah, man. Let's rapid fire, man. Let's go for it.
Good deal. So let's just we'll start with rye.
Okay.
Like what are you getting in the nose?
Well, I'll definitely get the rye grain. As you said, you get the black pepper. I get honey. I get a slight hint of.
I get like this lavender floral bouquet type of character. That's really hard to describe.
Yeah, I was gonna say like orange blossom honey too. That I get a little bit, but it is very floral, as you said earlier.
Now let's switch to the bourbon.
Yep. Wow, the corn really comes out when you go back and forth.
A lot more grainy.
Yeah, a lot more grainy.
I think the citrus is a little more clear. I think the oak is more clear. Where the rye, its earthy components, I don't want to say mask, but they at least obscure the barrel. the bourbon allows it to shine through a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I think the florality of the rye is what kind of takes over, especially on the nose. Whereas the bourbon, as you said, I get a little hint of that barrel char in there too, a little bit, which I really like. And like I said, that caramel apple note. I don't know if I'm getting it as much in the nose as I get on the palate, but like you said, like more of that citrus, orange, that like really like rich vanilla and that grain coming through on the nose.
Though for me, what winds up happening is the rye is molasses, where the bourbon is like a bright floral honey or citrus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the citrus notes tend to open up more over time, as well.
Let's palate the rye.
All right, I'm going to the rye. Here we go.
And these are both small batch variations of our product.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good foundational piece for you to see what are you going to be going up against with your single barrel pick.
Mm-hmm.
So for this one,
yeah, we'll use this as a base probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
Man, it's again, like I said earlier, the heft of it and the richness of it. It's very mouth coating to me.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely get I get like a great mix of like caramel, mint, pepper, and some of that floral quality to it, all in one. And then you get a nice spicy rye finish on this as well.
One of the notes that I absolutely love that we get out of our rye pretty frequently, because it has the citrus, it has this nice cinnamon, it has a little bit of spice. It almost creates this cola type of flavor.
I could see that. Yeah, a little bit of Coca-Cola. Yeah. I'm
Not
sorry.
Coca, more like a flat RC.
Yeah, like flat RC cola. Yeah. Yeah, without the bubbles.
Yes. So it finishes very earthy. It stays true to rye, but the balance throughout the experience is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best part about it is the balance of it. I think is what makes it stick out. But yeah, I could see kind of the flat cola part of it that you're talking about. It's got like this.
Well, cola, the base flavor of it is like a lime. It's citrus, cinnamon. So if you have a strong citrus note and a strong barrel character with cinnamon, you end up with that crossover. And then when you add in the fact that it has a little bit of vanilla, it has a little bit of caramel, it really kind of brings that base in there.
See, on the nose, I'm getting a little bit of like lemon lime Sprite on the nose a little bit. Yeah, some more of that citrus note is coming through a little bit.
And what's fun, this was on the rye that was even the less it was the less of the citruses.
Mm-hmm.
So let's switch over to the bourbon.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Yeah, more of the grain. But yeah, man, I just, at least in this bottle, man, the caramel apple note is absolutely delicious. And it's kind of like a caramel apple laced with citrus.
Yep.
A little bit of orange. You definitely get some cinnamon in here too, I think, as well.
I get a little bit of like dark chocolate that, how like you'll have like orange truffle or something, dark chocolate, and a little bit of orange zest.
Cowboy batch for the win, Jerome Schmidt. Does the cowboy batch? Was that
I think what he's referring to is a single barrel that we had here. That was a little bit of a pun. I wound up graduating with a chemistry degree, so naturally I love terrible wordplay. So we had one that was leathery, it was grainy, it was gritty, had this hazy smoke to it. And all I could think about was my mother's obsession watching Urban Cowboy, big John Travolta fan.
John Travolta fan, yeah.
Bull and all that. And my mind just went to him on that mechanical bull and that haze in the air. So we named it Bourbon Cowboy.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Your pick names are pretty epic. And they're usually driven by the flavor profiles, correct? Or sometimes it's a memory, though, as well?
Sometimes it's a memory. Most times it's related to the actual profile that we taste when we're in the barrel. And so for that, it's actually usually myself, Peyton Bill, who's our head of retail, amazing woman with an amazing palate. we'll go through, and usually we have an auxiliary piece. Most of the time that's John Wadle, single world curator. Sometimes it's Cordell Lawrence. Sometimes it's Tara Lewis now. She just got married. Amazing people who all have great ideas.
I just got like this chocolate covered marshmallow note on the very back end, which is like a toasted marshmallow. What are those? I know there's like a dessert, and I don't know what it is that it comes with. But it's like is it a Malamar? What are
I'm not that fancy.
What are the treats that it's just like it's like a chocolate covered marshmallow? Trying to remember. Somebody in the chat will know what the hell it is. Man, yeah, it's one of those bourbons. I think that it'll kind of, you don't really know what to expect, especially for the age. But it's just, I think what's impressive as we've talked about is the amount of flavor that you're getting. That you're getting in some of these. I don't know if you could really call Peerless, young whiskeys anymore. You guys are starting to, as you started out and you're
4, 5, 6 now.
Yeah, you might 5, 6 years old now. So you kind of, man, when this is like 7, 8 years old, is there like an age that you cannot wait to taste this stuff at, or you're just taking it as it comes?
I'm more excited to taste it tomorrow than I am today. And the day after, I'll be more excited than that. It's just, we're going to continue aging until we figure out that, okay, this is where this product needs to be, and then we'll look toward other things. Because again, our ambition is obviously not to only have one small batch bourbon, one small batch rye. We want to have different iterations, different flavors, different characteristics, different names that we want to support, but not at the cost of leaving traditional small batch bourbon, traditional small batch rye at a lower quality standard. We want to continue to deliver on our promise until we're ready to take that next step.
Oh, here it is. Malamar or moon pie. See? Those are the chocolate covered marshmallow things. Yeah, moon pie. So I think
so real quick, funny story.
Go ahead.
It actually ties all together. So I used to show Tennessee walking horses, and that's all centered around Shelbyville, Tennessee. And there is a community outside of there called Bell Buckle that holds the RC Cola and Moon Pie Festival. So oddly enough, 2 random notes that you were able to pull from our bourbon and from our rye. So if anybody in that part of the world would care to just go on down to the RC Cola and Moon Pie Festival and sample the bourbon and the rye next to their accompaniments, that would just be awesome.
I think if we find a pick tomorrow that has those flavors, I think we just got our names of our picks. Do some RC Cola and the Moon Pie Rye, maybe. We'll see how it works out. We'll hear how it works out, though. One thing I also want to talk about, which is I know a big question that usually everyone has, is what's nice is we're starting to see the prices for the Peerless come down as well, which I think was kind of a huge thing in the beginning, for younger whiskey. But, again, I always said that, look, the amount of work that they're putting into it, everything that they're doing is more expensive to make it. So that's just going to translate to the bottle price a little bit. But I think it's really nice to see the prices coming down a little bit more. And as this stuff gets older and older and, more distributions out there.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, when we first came out, we charged what we had to keep everything running. It would have been business-wise a cheaper decision to have done it at a lower proof, to have compromised quality, to have compromised our standard by having someone else make it and us just being a commodities business manager in between.
Absolutely.
That wasn't what we were interested in. So we came out of the gate. I understand that we were at a high price, but we charged what we had to. But as we increased our footprint, price came down. As we added bourbon, price came down. We continue to try to continue giving back to the consumers in a way that was meaningful to us. But with all that being said, a lot of these decisions to lower price happened very, very early on. It was just a very slow process of getting stores to say, well, we've been selling it for this. Why would we lower it? And it just takes time and a lot of gentle pressure to make sure that our intention for the consumers is actually realized.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something I wanted to bring up because I know some people, they see the price points of it and like, why should I pay more for this and then that? Um, you're getting a very different product than what you're getting from some of the heritage distilleries that could churn this stuff out and obviously charge you a cheaper price. But they're also not doing, most of them are not doing non-chill filtration. Most of them are not doing, sweet mash technique.
Well, one of the easiest examples to see right off the bat is when you talk about what happens between the barrel and the bottle.
Yeah.
You referenced that. We are 100% barrel strength, meaning when we take our barrel, because the way we've chose to store it, we don't add a drop of water. And what this does is it gets around usually a little under 200 bottles per barrel. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty steep way of going about it. If you go in contrast and store your whiskey very concentrated, 125 proof, let's just for argument's sake say that's it, and you proof it down to 80, you get over 300 bottles out of it.
That's right.
So, if you're saying, okay, am I easier to spread my cost over 200 bottles or 300? Obviously, you're able to lower your price if you're spreading your whiskey thinner.
Yeah. So besides the single barrels here, because I think I'm about to have this beautiful rye tie, which you said is the GOAT, the goat of all rye single barrels, and holy crap, it literally smells like it was aging in a rum cask, which is nuts.
On that one, no funny business, no oak cat, no secondary rum cask or anything like that. It was a standard barrel in a standard rick house with a standard batch and a standard deviation from flavor profile that was just unreal.
Yeah, you get rich brown sugar, maple syrup, and a little hint of banana too.
Yep,
which is crazy.
It has like this banana Foster note to it.
Yes, yeah, totally. Like banana Foster, flambe, it's crazy. But so you have your small batch, you have your iconic single barrels that are available around. What's next for Peerless? Is there anything that you could talk about? Anything that you're working on as far as future releases, or are you just kind of focusing on getting this stuff more up in age and continuing the success for your single barrel program?
I can't speak to specifics, but we have something really exciting on the horizon. But again, I can't give you the specifics. Just keep an eye out for us. Probably Q4 this year.
All right, so this year we could look forward to something really cool coming out. Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's see here. We're gonna throw some questions at you here from the chat. Let's see. Okay, Nick says that. Let's see. Any other questions you guys have? Please shoot them over here, and Kayla will be happy to answer your questions. Let's see here. Someone says, I love RC Cola, says Will Henderson. Let's see here. Visited Peerless last month. My first visit to Kentucky. It was my favorite tasting out of the 7 distilleries.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Steve A is curious about what is. Well, I think we just talked about this a little bit. Your best pitch for why consumers should pay a little bit more for Peerless versus a similarly aged Pikesville, for instance. Yeah. Well, I think barrel-proof, non-chill filtration kind of answers that question.
And something I do want to point out, it's not a either-or discussion. It's not, I only want you to drink Peerless for the rest of your life and never touch another product. Let's face it, variety is the spice of life. This would be a very boring show if all you did was talk about one brand. Mm-hmm. And that's not what whiskey's about. We want to be in your rotation, don't get me wrong, but I want you to try Peerless. I want you to try Pikesville. I want you to taste the Pappy. I want you to go around all the world of whiskey and enjoy every bit of it, because there's not any one whiskey that's worth drinking every single day and excluding everything else. It's just not the way it is. So when I go out, I like trying different people's single barrels. I love seeing what the Russell's Reserve is putting out or what the Elijah Craig barrel strength has. I love an Eagle Rare. I love all these different brands, these different distilleries, because, again, variety is the spice of life. If your goal when you make a purchase is saying, this is the only rye whiskey I'm ever going to drink for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So go ahead and try your Pikesville, try your Peerless, try your Kentucky Owl, try your Noah's Mill. Just go through it all. Have fun with it.
So Dusty Dan is here. He was actually with us when we did the interview. I don't know if you remember. And I remember when Dusty tried the rye tie, I never saw him, like, his eyes lit up like a little kid on Christmas. Cognac finish is the future. Well, you can't say too yet, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, finishing seems to be a big, part of what a lot of and you've done some finishes, I think.
We've done one style of finish so far.
Yeah, one of you was the absinthe one, correct? Yeah,
it was.
You guys did the absinthe.
I think we've done 4 barrels of that to date, and we haven't done one since.
Yeah,
but I do have ambitions of firing that up again. It's just,
do you like what absinthe does with to the Peerless?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I strategically chose absinthe as our first finish because I didn't want to just dip our toe into the water and see how the temperature was. I wanted to jump in with the most different, wild, diverse, impactful thing I could find. And for me, when you nose our rye finished in absinthe, it is prominent. It's there. You're not having to hunt for it or search for nuance. It is present. But what it does is the same way it complements rye within a Sazerac cocktail, it actually provides a beautiful balance, flavor, and it plugs different parts of the flavor wheel that rye doesn't necessarily hit. So rather than it overwhelming the rye or the rye overwhelming it, they complement one another.
Dean Andrews, good question. Caleb, by doing the process you do drinkers get a more robust flavor that does stay together longer when water is added by the consumer?
I don't know. I honestly, I tend to taste most everything strictly neat. I would imagine, well, let me just back this up from a conceptual standpoint. By not adding water at our phase, by not adding any water coming out of the barrel, we avoid chill filtration. Yep. When you avoid chill filtration, you're leaving in the fats, the oils, lipids, things that typically would be stripped out. So I'll say by not chill filtering the product, by leaving it at barrel strength, we're delivering to you a better whiskey that intrinsically, whether you add water or not add water, it should have more flavor. But I would expect to see a little bit more of an interaction when you add your water droplets to this because it does still have those fats, oils, and lipids as opposed to one where it's been stripped out.
DC, yeah, this might have been asked already. Yeah, can you touch on the bottle design? Yeah, everyone loves the bottle design. We touched on it that it's actually it's kind of a blueprint of one of the pieces of equipment you guys have.
It's called the Doubler.
The Doubler, but wasn't, if I remember correctly, wasn't the bottle design though? Wasn't it like and like everything at Peerless, it was a kind of a family vote. Like everyone voted on the specific bottle design. Wasn't it kind of like a community effort?
Not quite. Carson, it was kind of like Moses going up on the mount. Nobody knew what he was doing. And all of a sudden, Carson emerged with the bottle, and we were all like,
yeah! Will Henderson.
That was Dark Night secrecy. Nobody knew what
was happening with that one. Okay.
Yep.
Will Henderson, he's probably asking some cheating questions for tomorrow. Does he feel that the rye finish is better than bourbon? I think the rye definitely adds more I think that the rye definitely adds more complexity.
I'll put it this way: for us, they're both our babies. We love them both equally. Mm-hmm. But as far as against the categories they're in, I feel that the rye is fundamentally so much more different than the category rye whiskey. Just because it has the balance, it has the sweetness, it has the florals, it has so much that is typically a lot left off the table compared to other ryes, that I would say the rye is more of a game changer, whereas there's a lot of really, really good bourbons that I'm glad ours is standing up with, but the rye is where I feel that we separate ourselves from the pack a little bit more.
A couple more questions for you here. One is, this is actually an interesting question. I'm wondering if you've come across one of these. Will we ever get 130 proof Peerless, or is the entry level too low? Have you come across a barrel that's past 115, the 120 area?
116.5 is the highest we've ever had. Now I will say at some point there probably will be a barrel that will hit that. Reason being, the very first barrels that we filled at Kentucky Peerless when we were testing out, this was actually before we had the bright idea to go into the low proof. So the very, very barrel number one at Kentucky Peerless went into the barrel at 123 proof. So obviously that one's not going to get down because Corki has already made it clear that barrel is Henry Craver's. He's going to let him have the angel share on that one. It'll never be dumped. But there is 29 more barrels that I think at some point may see the light of day, and that one would have a high proof. But again, you're talking about something that's way off in the future and very low volume.
Okay. 2 wheels down. Oh yeah, again, from a '70s perfume bottle. Yeah, no. Let's see here. What is the key to maintaining consistency when using a sweet mash instead of a traditional sour mash? Good question.
Lots of cleaning. The reason traditional sour mashes are the standard is they're extraordinarily forgiving. The added acidity from the process, particularly in the early ages of fermentation, early stages of it, stave off contaminants, bacteria. It doesn't really do anything to omit them. It just helps contain them. In contrast, if you look at sweet mash, it could run rampant if you don't have extremely clean conditions, a fresh source of yeast. You pitch with clear, first generation yeast, a lot of cleanliness. It requires a lot more attention to detail, but we're, as Jason said, we're equipped for that.
All right, cool. There's any more questions here? Whoa.
Hello.
Oh, wait, there you are. You're back. Let's see here. All right, so before I let you go here, what's the? Do you have any advice for tasting these single barrels tomorrow? Should we go low to high, or what do you think? Oh, your phone's breaking up, man. Sorry.
Jason, I think my signal's giving out.
Yeah, signal's giving out a little bit. Oh, I see you now. Can you hear me? All right, Caleb. Well, oh, he's gone. Oh, let me get rid of that graphic there. Well, guys, it's like Caleb's signal went out a little bit, but obviously a really fun conversation with Caleb Kilburn. If you guys wanted to learn a little bit more about Peerless and what they're doing, like I said, a lot of people, tend to kind of get on the pricing of their stuff, but a lot of their pricing has come down, especially recently. And I'm telling you, if none of you guys have pulled the trigger on Peerless, they're putting out some of the more interesting and more just like flavorful whiskeys that you're ever going to have. Again, what you're looking at here, sweet mash, barrel proof, low entry proof, grain to glass, everything done in house. All the things that whiskey drinkers love these days or like to see on the bottle, and they put it right on the bottle here. Non-chill filtration, sweet mash, barrel proof, no water added. So if you guys haven't tried one yet, please try to give Peerless a try. I think it's absolutely amazing stuff. Their single barrels, if you've never come across it, are amazing too. But yeah, I just want to I know Caleb had to drop off real quick, but just want to say thanks for Caleb for hanging out tonight for a little while, and thanks to Peerless for letting us talk to Caleb. I really appreciate it, and we are so excited tomorrow. Again, real quick, I'll put up the graphic tomorrow night right here on the Mash and Drum, 9 p.m. We're going to be picking 2 single barrels for the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club. We're going to have Scott on, obviously, and we're going to have also Will Henderson. We're going to have William and Michelle Davilar will also be helping us pick, along with Joseph Brazzers. So tune in tomorrow night. See some of your friends in the chat actually hanging out and helping us pick some of these barrels for Peerless. Hang out, come back. I'll be back online about at 9 o'clock. Going to be going back to some bourbons and some whiskeys that I gave kind of a low grade to. I'm going to go back to them and see if I like them now better than I did when I first reviewed them. So let's find out if I was wrong. Did I need to give it a little bit more airtime? Need to give it a little bit more of a chance? I'm going to dive into some news. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So thanks for hanging out. A little bit of an earlier time tonight, but I will be going live in a little bit less than an hour at my regular time. So cheers. I'll see you guys at 9 o'clock. As I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you soon. See you like an hour. Get ready. Bye-bye.